One of the biggest questions I get asked all the time is when people finally figure out their messaging, they always ask like, Brandon, how do you integrate this into a webinar or this or an ad or whatever? How do we integrate this into strategy? And today, what I want to do is kind of give you an overview look of how we integrate our most effective messaging into a webinar. And this could be not only just a webinar, but a live event, a live training, a live workshop, or something where you're going to be presenting and making an offer. This is exactly what I do. It's something that you guys can take and run with. And hopefully you guys have taken action on that episode we did a few weeks ago where I told you how to get DMs of people wanting to work with you, because you're going to need the info from those posts to actually create a really effective webinar. So if you haven't listened to that episode, you might want to go listen to that one before you listen to this one, but that's it. Let's roll the tape. If you're interested in learning how to make your webinars convert more and higher, well, then keep on listening, because that's exactly what we're talking about. Hi, I'm Brandon Lucero, and you're about to experience the new way to thrive in business, entrepreneurship, and life by leaning into who you are, what you love, and standing up for what you want to create. Get ready, because this is where we go against the grain, say no to outdated society norms, and we say yes to change in order to create a happier, more fulfilled world. Welcome to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. Today, we are streaming from my office. I guess that's where we always stream from, record from. But yeah, so today we're going to do something a little bit different than we've done on the podcast. And so at the time of me recording this, we just released the episode around how to get DMs into your inbox. And hopefully you guys have taken action on it. We've had some good feedback around the episode. Actually, and I don't know how many of you guys took action, how many of you guys did whatever, unless you DM'd me and let me know. But what's really interesting is we have a decent amount of students going through it and taking action on it, which is just so awesome to see. And I know that if you did it and you did it, 70% perfect, the chances of you getting some DMs and people coming in is great. And has gone up. The chances of that happening has gone up. And so what we've realized and what we've noticed is that when people come into our program, the ones that tend to get like the fastest results, and I don't mean like the ones that get their messaging dialed in, like, because that's an ongoing process. It's going to take time. Like our program takes time, to figure out your messaging, to test it, to tweak it, to sit in silence, to figure out what everything is going to be. That takes time. But just because it takes time, it doesn't mean that you can't go and get results now. So what we have realized is that there's three types of posts that people do. And I shared what those three posts were in that episode. So you haven't listened to that episode, go ahead and do that now. And not only if you haven't listened to that episode, if you didn't do the work in that episode, you want to make sure you go do that before you listen to this episode. And the reason why is there's things that I talked about inside of that episode that are going to make this episode even more effective. And the next evolution and I kind of hinted at this in this episode, but the next evolution that we're going through is I'm not going, like we're in an evolution. We're in another pivot right now. And that's just a part of business and a part of life. And I'm, trying to figure out exactly what it is. And I have a pretty good idea of where we want to go with that. And it took a while to come to this conclusion because I had some resistance around it. And my resistance always was like, well, teach messaging. I don't teach strategy. I teach messaging. I don't teach strategy. But one of the biggest things we got from our students was, well, how do we integrate our messaging deeper into things like webinars and sales pages and stuff like that? And so what we're doing is we're crafting another offer inside of our mentorship program to help facilitate the crafting of the messaging, but then integrating that and working with you and crafting that messaging into a webinar, sales page, and we'll see where it goes from there. Ads, things like that. So what I wanted to do in this episode is help you with that process. And so part of our messaging philosophy and what we work with on our students is that we have them go through messaging first. So we're not getting rid of messaging. We're still going to be teaching messaging. But we're going to be teaching them. What we teach is you have to figure out the messaging first, which means you have to sit, figure out what it is. What do you want to do? Not what the external world has told you to do. What is it that you want to do? Let's test it and tweak it. Let's try different ways of saying certain things. Let's pay attention to what sorts of content is doing the best. let's pay attention to what themes seem to be working. Let's not really look at survey results all that much, but let's look at data and behavior on your content, on your ads, on your emails as you go through the program. And let's keep that in the back of our mind or in a log, and we can pay attention to what's working, what's not, what are people resonating with, what are they not? And we can start to craft webinars from it. And so even just the crafting of a webinar title for us, and the way that I'm going to teach it, and I do teach it to our mentorship students right now, is that in order to find your best webinar title, you basically just listen to your best content. And when you listen to your best content, what we're doing is we're starting to look at the behavior of our audience instead of what they say. And this is the thing that I tell people all the time, is we don't want to look at survey results all the time. Like obviously I'm looking at survey results. We look at survey results. We look at things like, why didn't you buy? What do you want? Things like that. Like, it's important, but I think a lot of people will make it their end all be all. That's everything that you want to do. And I don't necessarily agree with that, because I look at more of behavior. And the example I always give is like when you buy a present for a kid, like you can go to the store, they can pick out the most amazing toy or whatever. And then half the time they just play with the box. And so I look at the behavior of what they really wanted, and they wanted the box. And your audience sometimes will tell you that they want certain things, but they don't really want those. It's what they think might be the solution. It's what they think they might need. It's what they were told that they need. Or sometimes when they describe it, they even use the wrong language that doesn't even appeal to their subconscious mind. But when we start to look at our audience's content, what are they paying attention to? What emails have the best open rate? Which ones have the best watch time, the most likes, the most engagement? What ads, headlines are working the best? That's all behavior. And behavior is subconsciously driven. So if you can use the messaging or pay attention to what's attracting their behavior, and you put that into an ad and a webinar title, well, then now you know what's going to be working to their subconscious. It's going to appeal to them without requiring them to think. And that's some of the best copy out there. Some of the best copy out there says something, and you literally don't have to think about clicking or being interested. You go, click. That's the best type of messaging. And what I have found is, inside of our messaging philosophy, if you want headlines and you want ads, you want emails, and you want specifically webinars that are going to work, the thing that you're going to want to do is look at what behavior or what content has the best behavior on it. And then you just do a webinar on that topic. Don't overcomplicate it. Don't overthink it. Don't try to get tricky. Don't try to think like, hey, this is what people need in order to figure out what it is I do. Just focus on solving a problem and pay attention to what problem does their behavior show that they want fixed. And that makes it the webinar title. Okay, so that's part one. That's the title. Look at their behavior, and it will tell you what topic to go on. Now, again, we do have a whole process on certain ways to title it and all that stuff. And if you're an NGM student, just go to the how-to educational content titles and just do something similar there. If you're a listener, it's very simple. I'll give you a very simple example. If I do a video titled How to Create Engaging Content, the webinar title could literally be How to Create Engaging Content, or webinar, How to Create Engaging Content in 15 minutes or less, or something like that. You can put a little you can tack on a little thing at the end. No big deal. So that's it. Okay. So that's the title. Now let's move on to the next phase, which is where I really wanted to dig in. And what I want to do inside the webinars, I want to do things a little bit differently. Part of the problem that I see is that a lot of people use templates when it comes to webinars. And so the basic template would probably be something like an intro slide, a story. This is right for you if, this is not right for you if, here's the agenda. Like, that's been the traditional opening for webinars for the last, since I've been in the space for 10 years. And what I have found is that not one strategy works for everyone. For me, I personally don't tell a story in the beginning of my webinar. I actually tell a story in the middle of it. Why? Because the content that I teach in the middle of the webinar needs a story. So I like to teach and then back up the teaching with a metaphor, analogy, an example, or a story. So that way the subconscious mind can integrate what I just taught. The subconscious mind, the audience's mind goes, oh, that makes sense. I see how that works. So instead of me just teaching something and assuming that they're just going to believe me, I always give a story or a metaphor or whatever. So the subconscious mind goes, makes sense, makes sense. I get like that head nod effect, right? So I don't do that in the beginning. I do something a little bit differently. And what I want to do is break down very simply a new style of webinar format that you can use. But the reason why I said you have to go listen to that past episode is because I want you to look at those posts that you did. I want you to go look at the posts that you did if you follow the advice in that episode. Okay. So again, like as long as you're taking actions on these podcasts, I'm going to be helping you and I'm doing it for free. Okay. So just go do those posts. And what I want you to do is look at those posts that you did and which ones got the most engagement, which ones got the best engagement, which ones seem to have the audience kind of excited the most. And let's look at the language and the topics you use. That's going to become your webinar topic. But when it becomes your webinar, when it comes to what the content's going to be, is the problems and the two styles of mistakes are going to be very important inside of your webinar. So what I like to do is I like to start the webinar, and I usually will try to pick like a very good thought reversal piece of content that I did and turn that into a webinar title. And that becomes my topic. So my webinar might be something like how to create really engaging content without using any how-to content at all. That's like, it's kind of polarizing. It plays off my thought reversal, which is how-to content is not how to build the best way to build a business online. It also has a benefit they want, which is, or an end result they want, which is engaging content. So I always start with that. I always start with the big, bold promise. Today, guys, in this webinar, I'm going to show you exactly how to create really engaging content without using any how-to content at all. And then I go right into a common enemy or a big problem. So what I do is, and that's why the common enemy post, again, everything's strategic. I didn't just randomly make you guys go do 3 posts. I want you to look at what the common enemy is, and I want you to do a common enemy in the beginning. So what I always do is I say, now look, you may be in the content circle of death right now, which is why you're on this webinar. And the content circle of death is when 70% of your content is how-to and educational content. And that's all you do, mostly. That's all you do. You haven't figured out how to create engaging content without it. You're blending in, you're saying the same things as everyone else. And then I go right into the problems. In fact, I'm willing to bet that if you are stuck in the content circle of death, you have been plateaued in sales and audience growth for more than 3 months. And then I just go through this very specific problems. But guys, I already know those problems resonate. What I want to do right in the beginning of the webinar is a lot of people will tell you to hook them using benefits. What I tell you to do is to hook them by getting them to self-identify they are the person that you are talking about. So I hook someone in with my webinar title and I go right into speaking to their subconscious mind to get their subconscious to automatically go, crap, this person is talking about me. Oh my God, this person is talking exactly about me. So I talk about the problems and then I move right into the mistakes. Here's what's going on right now, guys. Here's what's going on and causing you to be stuck. You know, more and more people coming into the space. You're probably doing 70% all how-to content. In order to try to break out of that cycle, you're doing more of the same thing and it's not working. And I go through all the mistakes they're doing to try to fix the problem. I go through all the mistakes that caused the problem. And I go, I'm going to fix all of that here for you today. And then I move into social proof. Said, in fact, this is exactly what we did for this person, and this person. And you're going to get exactly what they got. Okay. And that should be like 5 to 10 minutes. That's how you open up a webinar. And it's almost like a combination of thought reversal intro combined with a self-identifying and common enemy intro. But the goal is in the first 5 to 10 minutes, you want to make that webinar so relevant to that person that their subconscious is firing. Like think about it for a second. If you're in a group of people and you overhear them talking, or you're around a group of people, let's say you're wearing a white shirt, a black hat, and blue jeans, and you hear that group of people and not really paying attention to what they say, but then all of a sudden they say, yeah, did you see that guy wearing a black hat, a white shirt, and blue jeans? Your subconscious is going to start firing, exploding. Pop, 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 pop. Pay attention to what they're saying. They're talking about you. It's relevant to you. Pay attention. And you're going to turn around and you're going to look at them and you're going to be, well, what are they saying? Are they talking about me? And their mind's going to be going, they're talking about me. And they may not be talking about you. There could be someone else they're talking about, or a friend or whatever. But your subconscious goes on alert. I want you to do the same thing to your audience in the beginning of a webinar. Make their subconscious go on alert because you're describing their problems, the mistakes causing the problems, the mistakes they're trying to do to fix the problem that don't work. You do that, their subconscious is going to be firing. And what I have found is it goes into a little bit more of survival mode for people than it does like pleasure mode. And again, I think a lot of webinars, the way it's taught is people tell you to like hook them using benefits and things like that. And that's great. And I think you can use that. But what I found is when it comes from like a survival instinct more, people latch onto it more. But really what we're doing is we're just showing this is completely relevant to you. And it's also great because you're also pushing people away. Because if someone doesn't have those problems, then that webinar is not for them. And you have to be okay with pushing people away. In fact, we just hired some mentors to help us evergreen some of our products and programs. Dan and Nicole Culver, I think they're either going to be on the podcast soon or they have been. I'm not sure when these episodes are getting released. And that's one of the things Dan said to me. He's like, look, we want to try something where we're going to push away 90% of your audience. And I was like, okay, tell me more. And he goes, because we're going to be so hyper relevant to that 10% that the conversions will go way up. And when we're that focused on a specific avatar, then we can actually serve them a lot better and create an even better program. And I was like, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So that's one of the things they said to me. And I started to realize, we do the exact same thing inside of our messaging when we get very specific on problems. So I'm like, you know what? We're totally aligned on that. So that's what I want you guys to do. You move into social proof after that. Okay. So after the social proof is done, you have some options on what you want to do. I like to personally add value by removing beliefs that aren't serving them. So what I like to do, if the opportunity presents itself, is do like a thought reversal. Like, okay, guys, before we move in, here's the things we need you to unlearn. And I almost do thought reversals. I say, so right now you probably believe that this is true. And then I discredit that counterexample metaphor. And then I do it again and again, and I say, okay, now that we unlearn these things that you need to unlearn, let's move into what you need to do. So you can do that. I also personally like having a slide somewhere in there, maybe after the social proof, that says something like, look, you're not in the right place today if you don't have those problems. You're also not in the right place if you're someone who whines, complains, bitches, and moans when someone gives you 60 minutes of their best information and offers to help you on a deeper level. And I will say something like, and look, guys, I've been doing this for 10 years. There's no way I can take 10 years of knowledge and put into a 60-minute presentation. You couldn't do the same for your audience either. But what I am going to do is give you my number one framework to creating the most engaging content I've ever created in my entire life without using how-to content. I'm going to show you exactly what all those people in those testimonials did. And then for those of you who want more help and you want us to help you do it, I'm going to give you an opportunity to work with us on a deeper level. So if you agree with that, then let's move on. And I like doing that because it makes people let you know that this is serious, that you don't need them, you maintain the power. But it also tells people that there's going to be an offer coming. So that way there's no like weird bait and switch or maneuver to an offer. It's like right there. You just, boom, you just go. You go right into the offer. And it's very easy and relaxed and people know about it. And then I'll move into the unlearning phase and then I move into the teaching. But by the time I move into the teaching, I've already added value in so many different ways. I've taught them to what to stop doing. I let them know mistakes. I let them know they're in the right place. There's all ways to add value. But you're usually going to be 20 to 30 minutes into the webinar by now. And now we just need another 20 or 30 minutes of teaching. And the biggest problem with webinars is that people tend to overteach. So they give out way too much information. And what I've found is you either trick people into thinking they have everything they need or you overwhelm them. And the last thing you want to do is overwhelm them. And then the second last thing you want to do is trick them into thinking they have everything they need. They're going to reach a point where they realize they need more help and support, but that may never come if you trick them into thinking they have everything they need. And if they do, it may come down the road and we want sales now. So when you go into teaching, I want you to do the exact same process that we highlighted in that other episode. So in that other episode, there was a piece of content where I told you to pull up your most popular educational piece of content and redo it. And I gave you 5 steps to follow. And I'm going to go over those 5 steps again now. But when you're teaching, on your webinar, let's say you have 3 steps to teach. Each step should consist of 5 different things. You don't go right into the teaching, and that's a big mistake. Again, you overwhelm people or you trick them into thinking they have everything they need. So what I like to do is I will state what step number 1 is. I will give a promise of what's going to happen in their life when step number 1 is dialed in. Then I talk about problems that are going to happen if that step is not done correctly. And it's going to be specific problems they're experiencing now, again, to pull in their subconscious. Number 3 is mistakes they are doing to try to fix the problem that don't work. The next step is I actually deliver the information now. And then step number 5 is I will tell a story, give an example, or a metaphor that shows that that step is accurate, is true, is the best way, or just in action, so that their subconscious doesn't have to think about, how does this work for me? How does it work in real life? Is this really true? Is this great? Is this a good piece of advice? So let me give you guys an example. If I was doing a webinar teaching people how to create engaging content, step 1 would be like working on the title. So here's how it would go. Okay. So I would say, all right, guys, let's move into step number 1, which is actually creating really engaging titles. Now, once you learn this process I'm about to teach you, and once your titles are actually dialed in, you may notice that you're going to have a huge increase in click-through rates on your content. In fact, you could probably have this implemented by the end of today, and you probably see an increase on some of your content by the end of today simply by changing the titles. Okay, so that's my promise. Then I'm going to move into the problems. Now, look, the biggest problem that people have with titles is that they usually will focus all on how-to titles. They don't incorporate identity. They don't incorporate time or get specific. And what happens is if you title something like how to lose 10 pounds, you go to YouTube and you type in how to lose 10 pounds, there's 10,000 videos. So all of their titles start to blend in. And I'm willing to bet that's probably happening to you because you don't know how to create engaging titles that capture attention, but also get people to click on it. Now, in order to try to fix this, you may have done absolutely nothing at all. Or to try to fix it, what you probably have done is just changed a few different words. And you did it blindly, meaning you didn't actually know what you're doing. You're just hoping that whatever change you make seems to hit with the algorithm or the people seeing the video. Now, what I want to do is dive into specifically how to do it. So what we're going to do is we're going to incorporate identities and time. And this is just one tactic of many that we have inside of our program. And then I would just go in and teach it. So I would say something like, instead of how to lose 10 pounds, you would say how to stay-at-home moms can lose 10 pounds in under 15 minutes a day or something like that. So I'd go through the details. I'd probably spend 5 minutes teaching it. And then I would say, and I'll pull up an example. So let's look at this video here by Gary Vaynerchuk. You see how he put the words how to in here, but he used the identity entrepreneur and he used this thing over here. He's doing exactly what I'm teaching you guys. So now I just finished step 1. But if you guys are paying attention, that's 5 steps. I talked about what the step was. I talked about the promise. I talked about the problems. I talked about the mistakes they'd use to try to fix it. I actually answered it. And then I gave a counterexample. So the subconscious mind sees what I'm teaching live in action. They go, yeah, makes sense. Okay. Yeah, I need to go do that. And this is what this does is it gets the audience to self-identify or come up with their own conclusion of like, oh my gosh, I need this. This makes so much sense. I never thought of this before. Or they're talking about me. All those problems and mistakes are exactly what I'm doing. No wonder I'm stuck. Brandon has the solution. And what I found is when you get so specific like that, when you get so specific in the problems and the mistakes, the subconscious mind self-identifies this is relevant to me. One of the examples that I give just to kind of bring this full circle for you guys is like if you fell into a cave or something like that, you fell down a cliff or whatever, and you're at the bottom of this cliff and you're like looking up, like, how do I get out of this thing? And you're looking all the way up there and someone walks by and the person says, oh, hey, I see that you're stuck. In order to get up, you just need to climb. And in order to climb, all you need to do is just like grab something above you, pull on it, make sure that it's like, strong enough and to hold your weight, and then just pull yourself up all the way. And it's kind of like that. And you probably look at them and you go like, yeah, okay, I could have thought of that myself. Right. And that person is where most of you are with your messaging. Very generalized, not very specific. lacking a little bit of mastery in your craft, so you stay very generalized. But then let's say someone else walks over and they go, hey, I see that you're stuck. And what you need to do is you need to actually start on the right side of the cliff. You're going to see a gray rock about 3 feet sticking out, and it has discoloration, and the discoloration is almost in the shape of a heart. Go ahead and stand on that to start. Then what you're going to do is you're going to reach to the top of your head, and there should be a root. Grab the root, and you're going to pull yourself up, and you're going to put your feet on a pink rock that's sticking out of the ground. Then you're actually going to look 3 feet to your right, and you're going to see a gray rock. And you're going to grab that, and there's 2 of them. You should put your foot on one and grab the other one. And then from there, there's like a little sandy area. You can actually use your hand and dig out steps in the sand and climb up the rest of the way by digging steps into the sand. And at the very top, there should be a one black obsidian rock. Don't worry, you're not going to cut your hand. It's very dull. And just pull yourself up on that obsidian rock, and then you'll be fine. It's like, who do you think you will listen to? If it were me, I'd probably listen to that second one. Why? Because they were so specific in their description of what you need to do that the subconscious automatically goes, this person just knows it, and they know it because they've done it. They're speaking from experience, because there's no way they would have known that had they not done it themselves or coached 1.5 million people on getting out of that cliff on their own. And this is why mastery and getting out of perfectionism is so important, because when we have mastery, we understand those specific points. We understand how to get accurate. We understand those little intricacies. We understand the little like pain points and problems, and we can laser in. And what happens, just like you automatically come up with the conclusion of this person knows what they're doing, your audience does the same thing to you. And this is why most people's webinars don't convert, or they get plateaued or stuck or stale, is because they just have like some headline that they think is along the lines of what their solution is or what they do. They try to lure people on, and then they just teach, hoping that if they give away their best stuff for free, that people will buy. And what I have found is when you want a really effective talk or book or presentation or webinar, you actually need to be speaking to the audience's subconscious. And that's how you do it, is by getting specific, by getting accurate, by showing them this is relevant to their specific situation. And so I teach that inside the program. I teach it to you guys here on the webinar, on this podcast, but a lot of you aren't doing it on webinars. And this is one of the reasons why when you hear me talk, or I'm doing a 3-day workshop that you attend, you're like, oh my God, Brandon, you're blowing my mind. It's like, yeah, because I've altered my conversation to speak from my mastery, but also to your specific situation, because I know exactly what you're doing. I know what the mistakes are. Not only have I made those mistakes, but I've worked with over 1,000 students who have all made very similar mistakes. After working with so many people, I know exactly what the mistakes are. I know exactly what you're doing to try to fix it. I know, for the most part, exactly what the problems are. And then I know how to speak in a very persuasive way so that it speaks to the subconscious mind. So the subconscious mind goes, up, this is relevant to you. They're speaking about you. This is what you need to do. And then what we do after that, we do that process for all 5 steps. So let's recap where we're at. Number 1, look at your most effective content, turn it into a webinar title. You have your intro, you have your specific problems and specific mistakes they're doing to cause the problems, and mistakes that they're doing to try to fix the problem. Next, social proof. And then you move into like an unlearning phase. So if it fits, what are some of the things they need to unlearn? And then you move into teaching, and you follow the 5 steps I just laid out. Now you move into the pitch. Sometimes, if this is done right, you may not even have to pitch at all. You just say, here, go here. And that's it. And they might be even asking, how do I work with you more? But what I do is I like to do a recap, problem, solution. I like to recap in just a minute. Here's what you guys just learned. Here's what we're going to do. Then I create a problem. I say, but if you only have that information, you may be able to fix, your 1 or 2 pieces of engaging content. I want to show you how to fix all the messaging and content problems within your own brand, not 1 or 2 pieces of content. So that's what our program is here to do. So again, recap, problem, solution. I recap what they taught, a problem that's going to happen if they only have the information they just taught, and then solution is my offer. So then I move into my offer. And then the way you present your offer could be any way. I haven't found a process on that works better than any others. Like just following the traditional format is probably fine. So that is how I would start to alter webinars. Now, this is something that we're going to start working with students on. So if you're excited about it, you're like, Brandon, I want to learn more. I want to work with you. I want you to help me craft it. I want to help you craft my messaging, craft my webinar, craft the ads. How do the ads play into the webinar? How do we get people to opt in? All that stuff. Well, then pay attention because things are coming. Things are changing. If you are a mentorship student, a lot of these changes will be added to your portal. You get it for free. If you're not a mentorship student, we have some things coming in the works in the future. So if you're an NGM student, not a mentorship student, pay attention to our live event. Unless it happened already, I don't know when this podcast will be out. But we're going to be doing a lot more new and different things lately and helping you guys not only fix your messaging, but I'm actually going to start helping you integrate that messaging now into effective sales strategy inside our NGM Plus mentorship program. So I'm really excited about it. Hopefully you guys are too. And hopefully today's episode gave you guys enough to at least start altering your webinars now and make them a little bit more effective. If you love this episode, please send me a DM. I love hearing your DMs. And if you are enjoying these episodes where I'm just telling you what to do and giving you out our secrets, just leave me a review on iTunes. I would absolutely love that. And we'll probably be doing more of these things, more of a mix of these styles of episodes, plus the mindset stuff, plus the spiritual stuff, plus all of that good stuff. So I'm really excited for the new direction that we're headed. And I'm just excited to be exploring what that is and then sharing all the stuff I learned with all you. So leave me a DM or a review on iTunes. I'd appreciate it. And I'll see you guys on the next episode. Take care. Hey guys, thank you so much for checking out another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, go below, hit the subscribe button, and make sure you click on that bell icon and get notified every time we drop a new episode. Now, if you're looking for the show notes, we have them linked underneath this video, as well as our social media handles and some links to free training and offers that we drop from time to time to help you guys even further. So go check those out if you're interested. And thank you so much for tuning in to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast.